If you're a football fan, you've probably wondered how can Chelsea spend so much, constantly underperform, yet face no real consequences? How is it possible? How could Chelsea lose their billionaire owner, become a mid-table team, and still be the one club that spends the most every transfer window? In this video, I'll dive into the details and explain how they're able to do business this way, what's their goal, and what their future might look like if they continue down this path. But first, let me give you some context. Before Russian tycoon Roman Abramovich took over the club in June 2003, Chelsea was a bang average team. They had only won a single First Division title in 1994, and despite being a mainstay in England's top flight since 1980, Chelsea had no real title aspirations nor the money to back them. But Abramovich changed everything. Less than 2 years after his arrival, Chelsea had already won a Premier League title, and their successful run would continue throughout the next 2 decades. During this time, they solidified themselves as an elite club, conquering 5 Premier League titles, 5 FA Cups, 2 Europa Leagues, 2 Champions Leagues, and 1 Super Cup. However, the Russo-Ukrainian War messed everything up. All Russian oligarchs were forced to divest from their investments in the Western world, and Abramovich was no exception. So, 19 years later, Roman's reign of stability at Stamford Bridge came to an end, and Todd Boehly became the new man in charge. If you're a logical person, you'd think that when taking over a stable club, you'd probably make some tweaks, but you wouldn't completely disrupt a team that had won the Champions League less than a year before. But Todd doesn't think like that. Everything has to be big, American style. So after spending a total of 127 million euros during the entire 2021-22 season, Chelsea almost tripled their expenses, splurging 311 million euros in Todd's first transfer window in charge. However, things got even messier in January. By that point, Chelsea had endured a terrible first half of the season. They were stuck in mid-table, Tuchel had been fired in September, and the promising manager Graham Potter wasn't delivering at all. So what does Boehly do? He spends even more money. In just 1 month, Chelsea spent almost 340 million euros, which was more than they had in the summer. That month also marked the beginning of one of the most questionable trends in Chelsea's business plan, giving very long contracts to very young players. Enzo signed a 9.5-year contract, while Mudryk signed for 8.5 years. Not sure if I need to explain why this is such a dumb move, but let me put it this way. If I could guarantee you everything you've ever wanted and set you up for life within a decade, would you still feel the same hunger you'd have if you were at the bottom trying to climb your way up? I don't know you, but chances are you wouldn't. And judging by the progress of Enzo, Badiashile, and especially Mudryk, it's not working out well for them either. As you're all aware, those hundreds of millions did nothing to improve the club's position. By the end of the 2022-23 season, Chelsea finished in 12th place, their second worst placement in the Premier League era. But that bad season wasn't entirely in vain. By the end of it, Todd Boehly admitted that mistakes had been made and decided to step down from his duties as sporting director. While the crazy spending continued, with Chelsea breaking their own record for the most money spent in a single transfer window again in the summer of 2023, there were no more ridiculous winter transfers. The club, thanks largely to Cole Palmer and Pochettino, managed to return to Europe, albeit to the Conference League. And now, in 2024, the spending spree continues, bringing in wingers left and right and recruiting youngsters who will probably never become surefire starters. Nobody sees them as title contenders anymore, yet looking at the money they spend, you'd be forgiven for assuming they were. So, long story short, how did they do it? You see, Chelsea might be terrible when it comes to recruiting effective players. For every Cole Palmer, there's a bunch of nobodies rotting in France or on their bench, players their manager doesn't even know about. But one thing that they're pretty good at is selling. In the 2023-24 season, Chelsea profited 271.5 million euros. In the 24 summer alone, they pocketed 178.4 million euros. Furthermore, that's money entering directly into their accounts, while the transfers Chelsea makes are never paid in one go. Usually, Chelsea divides a total fee into installments paid over the following 5 years. This way, their financial balance continues to comply with UEFA's financial fair play rules as long as they keep selling players for a profit. But wait a minute, how can they sell players for a profit when they buy them for overpriced fees? Well, that's where the academy comes into play. Chelsea's bulk of sales comes from academy players they spent little to nothing to acquire. So even if their major signings flop, they can always recoup some money from academy kids or prospect signings that succeeded elsewhere. Obviously, this strategy is keeping them afloat in the short term, and if I were you, I wouldn't expect Chelsea to collapse in the next few seasons. However, this strategy is extremely risky, as Chelsea needs most of the players they invest in to increase in value. For example, Philip Jorgensen and Aaron Anselmino need to eventually leave the club for over 25 and 17 million euros respectively, but at the same time, neither of them is valued at that amount. To put it simply, buying players for Chelsea's board is like investing in the stock market. Buy low, sell high. But football is unpredictable. Chelsea has a huge number of players under contract and they certainly don't seem to manage their careers well. There's a high possibility that most of the signings will depreciate in value over time. After all, if a player isn't deemed good enough for the current Chelsea level, do you think any other elite clubs will be willing to overpay for their services? Unless Chelsea continues to find loopholes like the ones that I mentioned, they're bound to struggle. The long contracts offered to their talents, the lack of managerial continuity, and the absence of sporting success are serious threats to Chelsea's future. Honestly, I don't even know if they'll still be in the Premier League by the next decade. But what do you think? Is Chelsea making good business moves, or will they eventually crash out? Let me know your opinion in the comments, as I always go through every single comment. Drop a like if you find this video informative and subscribe to Turn FC for the best football content on YouTube. As always, thanks for watching, I appreciate your support and I will see you in the next one.